I'm not going to make a massive introduction for Kirsty, because I think Kirsty's going to actually tell the story here. And it's going to be more than a bio, it's going to be like a life story. So we're looking forward to that. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Kirsty.
Thank you, Tony. Feels like coming home, coming to this event. I was here talking about 2 years ago. So if you were at, can I get a show of hands who was here 2 years ago? Okay, good news, it's a different talk. I'm not going to bore you. So the last time I was, the theme of my talk was own your story, because I believe everybody has a story to tell. And I gave a little bit about my transition from being a journalist with the ABC to becoming a business owner and a writer. But things have moved on, and today I have the pleasure of just telling you about one story, and that's not my story, it's the story of Som Tamang. Some of you are probably wondering where Som is today. I know he was originally part of this event. Sadly, his father's health deteriorated, and even though he'd just been to Nepal recently to visit his family, he had to dash back there on Monday, and unfortunately his father passed away on Tuesday, so he was there with him. So we send him our love and best wishes, and he is going to be here with us today because I'm going to play you a very special video. So this is not something that's going to be part of any other talk that I do, but I wanted to share with you what Som is experiencing this week while he's back home in Batase. And in the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to give you a bit of an insight into why I was so inspired by this man who lives in Cairns. He's been here longer than I have. He's lived in Cairns almost 21 years. I've only been here nearly 14. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an insight into his world, let him tell you in his words as well, and also take you on a journey to Nepal, if you haven't been there already, take you through my experiences volunteering with Friends of Himalayan Children, which is Som's humanitarian organisation, and also doing a trek with Take on Nepal, which is his female-focused trekking company, which is also based here in Cairns. So hopefully by the end of this talk, you'll have lots of questions for me. You'll be inspired to buy a book and read more about Som's story, and possibly pop into the store, Himalayan Dreams, that Som runs in the Pier Shopping Centre with his partner Susan, and go and have a yarn with him when he's back, and possibly even have a think about volunteering in the village or going on a trek with Take on Nepal. All right, so how did we meet? How did I come across this extraordinary man who just happens to live in Cairns? As I mentioned, I was working at the ABC. I moved over here from Alice Springs in 2010 to take a more senior role with the ABC. So I was the lead news journalist, and for a time I was the chief of staff. So in 2015, I'm not sure what you were doing on Anzac Day in 2015, but Som and Susan were going about their business, having a nice family day, and when they got home, the phone was ringing. And it was Som's older sister, Tokmaya, and she was hysterical, and all he could get out of her was that there'd been an earthquake, and the village went into chaos. It's about 1,800 metres above sea level. It's very remote. It's a 2-day walk from Kathmandu, and it's largely rice and millet terraces, so prone to landslides. And it is monsoon season at the moment, so this earthquake happened when they were just going into the monsoon season. So I reached out to Som as a Cairns citizen from Nepal who had been affected by the earthquake, and I was very surprised that he was happy for me to come around to his house and do an interview for ABC about the tragedy. And by the time we got there, he'd found out that his brother Amber had died. And this started the conversation about Som's work with Friends of Himalayan Children. I hadn't known about the organisation before, but it was set up in 2007, officially registered in 2008, and supports children in Som's village, Batase, to go to school. So they built a children's hostel, and that's for kids who either have large families and the parents can't look after all of them, or for children who may have lost both parents or need to escape from situations where they are vulnerable. Why does Som do this work? It's very much about his own personal history, which we'll get to in a moment. But just following on from the earthquake, this is a message he recorded when he was back in Batase on April this year on the 9th anniversary.
Hello, my name is Som Tamang. I'm a founder of Friends of Himalayan Children. 9 years ago today, we were hit by a big earthquake, and I lost my brother 9 years ago today, and we nearly lost few children in the hostel when the hostel got broke down because of the earthquake. Everything got destroyed. The school down 10 minutes away from here, and the hostel where the children are living at the moment, everything got destroyed. And now after 9 years, we have all the school and the hostel, everything is back to normal. We have managed to rebuild, and a lot of this happened because of the support of Cairns local community. And I really want to say my thank you and show my gratitude for the local community here in Cairns, also my community in Nepal. Without the team of good people, I would have never been able to make my dream come true. And I really like to thank you everyone, and I hope you will continually support my cause to educate the children of Batase and rescue children to be in a safe home when it's necessary. Thank you.
I was fairly inspired by Som after our first meeting. I kept following his trips back to Nepal to help in the wake of the earthquake, because he knew that the focus would be on Kathmandu and the Himalayan trails that the government depends on for income, essentially. And he was worried that there'd be many villages like his own that if there wasn't supplies getting to them, volunteers to help with injuries, building shelter, that there would be many, many more deaths than the 9,000 lives that were lost. So I didn't go immediately to Nepal. Having covered lots of natural disasters, I knew very well that there's a huge outpouring of support after they happen, as we saw after the Cairns floods in December. But months go by and people forget and other things happen. So I thought the best time for me to help would be sometime after this disaster. So the first thing I did was start to sponsor the first of 3 girls that my family has sponsored, Janisha. She was 6 years old. My husband said, my criteria is it has to be a girl and it has to be the youngest girl who needs a sponsor so we can support her for the longest time. So Janisha is now 14 years old. And I'm getting goosebumps. My husband he hasn't been to Nepal, and we're finally going together, and we'll get to see Janisha then. So I ended up going 18 months after the earthquake to see what this was all about and to help. I was having my own personal crisis, which you heard about in my last talk, and I'd kind of needed to have some time out and recover. And when I felt strong enough, I decided to go and volunteer in Som's village for a month. Went over there by myself. Som wasn't even there. I think we crossed over by about 4 hours in the whole time I was in the village. And I said, I can try and build things, I can cook, I'll do whatever you need me to do. And he said, I want you to teach journalism in the school. And this is the school as it was for many years after the earthquake, a tin shed on a dirt floor. But I can tell you, I've never seen such commitment to education than I saw from those children. They get up at dawn, they run, they do their chores, they help with farming, and they walk, some of them walk miles to school every day, and they're there for a long day. They go 6 days a week, and they couldn't be happier to be there learning, unlike our children in Australia. You don't have to sort of hassle them 6 times to get out of bed in the morning. So I found that a really inspirational experience. Very daunting because I'm not a teacher. I've always been a mentor in the newsrooms that I've worked in, but it's quite something different turning up to a school where you don't speak the language and they don't speak your language, and you're dealing with concepts like journalism when most of them haven't seen a newspaper or a television or a radio. So it was a vehicle for teaching English, and it was really good for rebuilding my self-confidence, giving me a sense of purpose, and also immersing myself in the work that SOM's organisation does by making education available to these kids, by covering school fees, by having the hostel. They are imagining a future for themselves that they didn't before. So we then sponsored Rabina up in the top right corner, and she is a shining star. I had a year 4 class, they were very unruly, and she kept coming up to the whiteboard. I'd just finished setting a task, and she'd be up there about a minute later going, "Finished, can I have something else?" And then at the hostel at night, after school, she'd be saying, "Can you set me more work? Can you set me more work?" So I knew that she was going to be a real high achiever, and that spoke to me, because I have been one throughout my life. And so we've continued to support Rabina, and she is now finishing her Year 12 study in Kathmandu. She actually earned one of 9 kids in the whole of Nepal to earn a scholarship to finish the last 2 years of her school in Kathmandu. So we're so proud of her, and she wants to be a nurse, and we're going to help her make that dream happen. And then our Women in Media group also sponsored Santali Tamang, who wanted to be a journalist, finished her journalism studies, and then is now working in Japan. So just so touched by what I saw while I was there, and the opportunity and the way these kids were grabbing it and taking it and running with it. And it all came from that SOM, in the couple of hours that we crossed over in the village the first time, and me in the classroom. So when you're there, Tony wanted to know a little bit about the experience of life in the village. Electricity is intermittent, so you can't just plug your phone in and charge it up whenever you want to. Everyone seems to have a phone, and now they've got better internet apparently, but at the time when I was there the first time, it was available just in the Friends of Himalayan Children office, and 11 days went by when I was there where the internet went out. It was just this one little tenuous line, and it was unbelievable that in such a remote place we had it at all. So I was very grateful, but my mum and my husband thought I was dead. So eventually we got word to everybody that I was okay, and it was just that we were offline. But I was able to actually dial into a Friends of Himalayan Children meeting happening in Cairns and give a little report from over there. So yeah, the mind boggles, and now the connectivity is even better. But you're just absorbed into village life. So we're collecting firewood to fuel the stoves for the food. As I mentioned, sometimes you're not relying on lights and electricity. So the kids are that committed to their study that they'll just light a candle and keep doing their homework. And that's Janisha and her siblings in the right-hand side as well. So I went down and spent a bit of time, because she's not looked after in the hostel. She's actually still living with her family, but she gets supported to go to school with her school supplies and school fees, etc. And the rice harvest was also on when I was there. So you just get a taste of village life. You're very much not expected to, but you naturally want to just be part of what's going on. And it's really fulfilling. It's a life you just can't have here. So I came back from there with 2 things. I thought, I don't really want to go back to the ABC. I now want to be a trainer. I want to use my teaching skills as a business. And I also want to write this man's story, because what an incredible legacy he's leaving in his village. And I alluded at the beginning to the fact that there was a reason why he was so passionate about making sure children in his village were educated, and it's because of the experience that he had as a child. This is Som at age 5, and they had to struggle to pull the money together to get him a uniform to go to school from a very young age. He was walking hours down to the next village with berries to sell or exchange for other foods to help his family out. And at that stage, the school, Batase school, only went to grade 5. So he really wanted to continue with his education. He tried to do that in a village a couple of hours away. didn't have a lot of success. And then one day, a village uncle said, I can place you with a family in Kathmandu. They need somebody, they'll send you to school, you'll be adopted into the family, they'll treat you like you're their own. And he didn't tell his parents, he just packed a backpack and followed on, walked to Kathmandu with this man, and because he was so committed to doing his education, that's all he could think about. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out that way. He spent the next 2 years washing, cooking, cleaning, taking other people's children to school and never getting to go to school himself. So essentially ended up in a child slavery situation. So when he finally escaped from that, he was determined for that not to happen to his siblings, his younger siblings, one of whom is Himalayan Tamang. So the photo of her in the centre is how girls are in the village, and she would have got married young, had kids, and done farming chores, and then looked after her husband's parents. That is really what was expected of women in the village. Education wasn't seen at all as important, and when Som went to school, there were very few girls at all going to school. So he fought his parents to send Fulmaya to school. She finally got to go at age 11, and it took a threat for him to cut his family off and not support them for them to finally say she could go. I'm pleased to say that she now also lives in Cairns. She is one of Som's lead trekking guides, and she's a qualified social worker and pharmacist. And had that intervention not happened, she would be the person in the middle. So, having been inspired to write Som's story, I thought, oh, I've got to go back there because I've only had a taste, and I need to go back there when Som is there. And the opportunity arose 2 years later. So in 2018, I was back over there. I didn't really want to go to Everest Base Camp, but that was the trek that was organised with Som, and I thought, oh well, at least I can immerse myself in his world, because he was a Himalayan trekking guide, and as I mentioned, he's now got Take on Nepal, a trekking business. So here we are on the way back from our Everest Base Camp trip, which raised money for the first library in Batase. So during this visit, I was able to interview his mum and lots of other people in the village he'd helped to piece together parts of Som's life, because he's very humble, he doesn't give much away. So that's where I did the gathering of the information for the book, and also immerse myself a little bit more in Nepali culture and the Himalayas. So what's it like? Has anyone done this trek or been in these regions? Yep, Brian, so, and John, yep, a couple of others. All right, it's bloody cold, isn't it? And you're carrying a lot of stuff, or the porters really do make life easy for you. You can just carry a few kilos, mainly water and food. And the further you get, the closer you get to base camp, the more bleak it becomes. So it becomes very featureless. I don't know if you were affected by altitude sickness at all, but I got a really bad cold. And Som warned me, he said, you know, your personality might change, and it did about a few hours out from base camp. I pretty much lost my shit, and I thought, I was just outside Gorak Shep, and I was like, I don't think I want to do this, I don't want to go on, and I bawled my eyes out, and all the women came around and they hugged me and they're like, just keep going. So I had a good meal for lunch, and then we made the last few hours trek to base camp. So it is a very physically and emotionally and mentally challenging challenge, and I have no desire to do it again. But I encourage you to do so, because there's a great sense of personal achievement. There are other easier things to do in life, but it did help me get myself immersed in that world. And joyfully, a lot of the girls who were in my class in 2016 were my trekking guides in 2018. So Som has really broken the mould with the trekking industry. The girls, it's a male-dominated industry, always has been, and he thought, well, why not employ girls? They're very strong, they carry huge loads in the village, much more than they do on a trek. And it's giving them economic opportunity, giving them a chance to support their families. So these young women were all trekking guides of Soms, and I was so happy that they were on the trail with us. So some of their stories are also in the book. It's not just Som's story. So when I started doing this book, I thought there were other people I found out about that I had no idea were part of Som's journey or Som's life. So there's actually a few well-known people in this book, and I got to interview them, which was kind of fun. So Jason Clarke played Rob Hall in the movie Everest, and as you'll read in the book, he, in a small way, but possibly a very significant way, helped Som get to Australia. And Som came across, or was introduced to Jason by another Australian actor, Malcolm Kennard, who many of you may know from playing Ivan Milat in the docu-series, which is why he looks a little bit scary there. And I had the great pleasure, we've stayed in touch since I did the interview with him, but I had the great pleasure of him finally meeting him at my Sydney launch about 3 weeks ago. So that's him there on the right. So that was a real delight. Conrad Anker, famous mountaineer, he's been involved with Som's trekking and the girls, and given a couple of them, including Fulmaya, opportunities to advance their skills with ice climbing. And this gentleman down the bottom, Julius, probably never heard of him, but he was one of the first people to help Som with his vision of creating this, extending the school and making education possible for not just his family but the rest of the village children. He came and visited the village, as a backpacker, and Som had no idea that this was actually an internet millionaire who had the means to help him. So he was inspired enough to give Som the sort of seed money to do everything that he's now done. Had my own challenges along the way. Of course, I finally got to the business of writing the book in the middle of 2020, so you might remember that was COVID, so I thought, great time to finally make this thing happen. I'd got a grant from the Cairns Regional Council, a RADAF grant, so I'm very grateful to them for that. But about 6 months later, I had to have a hysterectomy, and I thought, great, I can write the rest of the book while I'm recovering, but of course you don't feel like doing anything but feeling sorry for yourself and reading new idea. So here I am playing catch up any minute I can, because I do run a business. I have emotion video training and production, which is a full-time concern for me. So this was like having another full-time job on top. So that's me writing in the hairdresser. So finally made it finish and happen in 2021, and of course needed to get it published. So the last time I spoke at this event, I was on that journey, and I tried and I tried and I tried, and I thought, surely as an ABC journalist with a great story, someone's going to pick it up. So I kept making submissions to publishers, doing pitches, and got the same answer every time, if they bothered to respond, which was, fantastic story, amazing life, so well written, not for us. And so I didn't want to give up on the story, and I didn't, because Som never gives up. So had this beautiful turn of events, and I'll show you a photo of her shortly, but late last year I had someone reach out saying, where can I get this book? I need to read this book, because we'd done a bit of media around it, and she'd seen one of the ABC stories, and she'd found me. And then when I said I couldn't, it wasn't published yet, she said, well, can you publish it yourself? And I said, yeah, but I don't have the money for that. So she sent me the money. Didn't know me from Adam. And so that was a really life-changing thing for me, because it meant I could finally go from having this manuscript to this book that you see today. So people are still out there trusting and believing, as I did, as Som has throughout his life, that there are good things out there that happen when they need to. So I've had lots of signs from the universe that this is exactly what I was supposed to do. I wouldn't have told you when I was a young person that I would be writing a book, and I certainly wouldn't have told you I'd be writing this book, but somehow the universe delivered this story to me to tell, and I'm so proud to be able to tell it. So that's Elizabeth there on the right. She came to our book launch at the German club in March. It was the first time we met her, and it was such an honour to have her there with us. She lives down in southeast Queensland. So, I'm going to tease you with a trailer now. And many thanks to Juliet Lackmeyer, Dr. Juliet, who is a local here, but fantastic publisher who I knew my book would be in very good hands with, and I know Leslie's published with Juliet as well, so she is a great person to know, and was very, very happy working with her to make this book come to life. So I've been busy. I keep having people come and talk to me and say, "You've been busy?" Yes. This is speaking event number 17 since launching the book, and I'm absolutely delighted to be out talking about it because this is such a good story and it just resonates on so many levels, whether you just need a bit of a pick-me-up, whether you need some perspective on your own life to go, actually, my stuff's pretty small compared to what Som has been through, because there's a whole lot there. So yeah, it's been a real pleasure. I've done book events everywhere I've been for work, so Darwin, Alice Springs, Adelaide, Sydney, and there'll be more coming, and hopefully Som will be able to join me at some of these talks, because I know that you really want to hear from him as well. So on that note, he's continued to have challenges in his life, and he's had two pretty big ones recently. So when he was over there in April this year, BJ is one of the success stories of Friends of Himalayan Children. He was supported to go to school through Friends of Himalayan Children, and then gave back as a volunteer, as a mentor to the children in the hostel, as a trekking guide, and has been an integral part of Som's work in Batase village for the past few years. They went on a team building trek. They were trying to find a new trek to do from Batase village, and they were all on the trek together while Som was over there, and he had gone ahead with another person, and BJ had left his sunglasses behind at a stop, and he ran back to get them, and came back, caught up with the person who was waiting for him, and sat down and never got up again. So he died suddenly at age 25, and that's been a huge blow to Som and his partner Susan and all of us who know BJ. He was on our trek in 2018, and he's a very talented videographer, so a lot of the videos you see or saw of the children from Nepal, from the treks that were happening, were all BJ's work, so he's been an inspiration to me as a videographer as well. In fact, he's the one that filmed that message from Som in April as well. And as I mentioned at the beginning, just this week, Som has lost his father. So this is them a few weeks ago, and the last photo that Som had with his father, Man Bahadur. So with Som's permission, I'm going to share you some videos that he's been putting up in the last 24 hours, taking you to Nepal and his journey back to the village. So I hope this isn't triggering for anybody.
Welcome to Kathmandu, Som brother. Thank you. Hi guys. I arrived yesterday because of my dad. We are on our way to see our dad. So this is the Kathmandu traffic. Welcome to Kathmandu.
Cause they ain't never seen me fall under pressure. They ain't never ever seen me fall, but I never. Always keep one up on them cause I'm too clever. I will never ever sell my soul, nah, I never.
So guys, we just ran into this landslide area. It's cornfield to fell down. Normally we have a bus going up and down here, but today we didn't have to go
So I was born in that house, guys. It was rebuilt again after the earthquake in 2016. I'm gonna take you down to where my mom and dad live, when my dad lived, so you can hear the ceremony for my dad. My dad passed away about 4 p.m. yesterday, and since he's passed away because he was a witch doctor, and Shaman, the village keeper, the village elder, his ceremony started last night about 7-8 p.m. and it's continued over the night. And this is a Shaman's part, and we still have another part, which is our lamas, which is the Buddhist ceremony, which will start probably about midday. So I just wanted to give you a glimpse of what my village life is. We have said goodbye to our dad. It's left of the cemetery now. As the oldest son, I'm in to, it's hard to say, I'm in to take the role of my dad, being a Shaman, witch doctor, and village leader. And my second brother died during the earthquake. Now I have decided to pass on to Dinesh for our tradition to keep live and follow the dream of Dad.
So there you go, a very special window into Som's world, and I'm really grateful to him for allowing me to share that with you today. Something we don't normally get to see. What was my motivation for writing the book? Apart from feeling called to do so, because I think everyone needs to be inspired by this incredible man who came from nothing, overcame poverty, a tiger attack, a critical head injury, civil war, earthquakes, COVID, and losing so many people that are important to him. If he can do all of that, then so can we. So at the moment, Batase school goes to year 10, and it's my dream and Som's dream that we will eventually get that school to year 12. It's already come so far, and doing this would mean that no children need to drop out of school after year 10 and leave their education behind. Some of them do go on to other schools, but it takes a lot of money to go to schools in other villages, many hours away, or in the city, so many drop out at that point. So I want what Robina has access to, which is the last 2 years of education. So Rotary International has been a real partner with me along this journey in the book, and Cairns Sunrise Rotary donated $10,000 for computers and a teacher for the library, for the school a few years ago. And now they are making it possible to make tax-deductible donations. So you can support a child through Friends of Himalayan Children and make donations, but they've never been able to be tax-deductible. So now through the Rotary Australia World Community Service Program, anyone can make tax-deductible donations, and we've got this lofty goal of raising $400,000 to complete the school. So there's flyers on your table. If you feel inspired, please consider donating. Everything counts. And hopefully you're also inspired to read more about Som's story and purchase Himalayan Dreams. This is the school. It's absolutely beautiful. I haven't seen it since it's been rebuilt. Caritas Switzerland rebuilt the school after the earthquake, but it took until, so the earthquake was 2015, it took until 2019 for the school to reopen on this site. So I'm very much looking forward to going back there in October. And now you can ask me questions.
Thank you, Kirsty. I'm very speechless after that presentation. And I was actually away that, I think I had to go down south for your first presentation a couple of years ago. So it was good to see it in this light. And I know that all of us will do everything within our power and influence to try and help towards the cause.